What drives people in the final stage is to kind of take a bird's eye view and finding that big purpose, that big goal. Why are you doing this to begin with? A lot of times it's more than that specific number you are aiming for. A lot of times it's what helps to motivate people to finish big.
Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to be here today with Szu-chi Huang. Szu-chi, welcome to What the Fundraising.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Associate Professor of Marketing at Stanford Business School, and I'm trained as a motivation scientist. I do a lot of research on what motivates people to pursue certain goals, can be individual goals or collective goals like campaign goals. I'm very excited to be chatting with you and sharing some of our research insights with your audience.
Yes, I am really excited. You have experience researching around fundraising in particular. And then we were talking right before we clicked record around the motivation of fundraisers, because they are the driving force behind all of these campaigns. Sometimes the campaigns are kind of preset, right? So they do a lot of the creation of the campaign in advance and then it starts rolling, and maybe they have some management throughout, but they've sort of designed and implemented all of that up front. But a lot of fundraising is happening in this really dynamic way where they are making decisions about the campaign, editing the campaign, reaching out to donors, shifting to achieve their goals sort of throughout the campaign itself. And I'm really curious about what drives fundraiser motivation up and down throughout those experiences, and how we can support fundraisers and help them sort of optimize their motivation to see the greatest results. So I know that's a big sort of stage setting, but where do you think we should start the exploration of this conversation?
Sure. I think this is a big question, and this is the question that's been driving a lot of my research projects. And so I would like to start by reminding us of the story that we all have heard of when we were kids, the story of the turtle and the hare. So if we remember that story, it was about the turtle and the hare being in the race. And the hare was the excited one in the beginning because the hare was making great progress from the start. And that is a great motivator for the hare to work really hard, be very energetic, and continue running. And it sucks to be the turtle in the beginning because you're already putting off, things that just got started, and you are not getting the signal that you can do it. But we all know how the story ended. Being the hare is not that great at the end because that signal to ourselves that there's nothing else to achieve. I'm getting close to the end of the race. I'm ahead. So why am I still working hard? And that's why the hare took a nap under the tree and the turtle got a chance to catch up. So the moral of the story, what we got as a motivation scientist, is that we want people and ourselves to feel like the hare in the beginning, and we actually want to feel like a turtle at the end. So what does that really mean? What that means, as we launch a new campaign, for instance, for fundraisers, in the beginning, there's a lot of fear. The fear is around whether I can reach this campaign goal, right? Is this even possible? Things feel very big at that moment. And the campaign goal feels very far away. So in those stages, the early stage of a campaign, the fear is about, can I do it? Can we get there? So in that moment, you want to feel like the hare. You want to feel that the campaign is doing well. We are making progress. And there are many ways to kind of create that feedback for ourselves. For instance, we have tried to do things to tailor messages in our campaign letters by highlighting how fast we are getting signatures, petitions signed, how fast we are getting donations or volunteers at a certain location. So you can always pick up messages that give you that positive reinforcement that make you feel like the hare, that you can do it. And that is especially important in the beginning. Find positive feedback to make you feel that you are making progress. We have also tried to structure campaign differently by giving people more opportunities to sign up, having more time slots, more locations, especially in the beginning. And it's trying to do the same thing to help us feel that we are making progress. There's a lot of action happening, a lot of word of mouth happening, trying to have that positive sense of signal that we are doing great. We are making progress. We are the hare in this race. But the important thing to keep in mind is that you don't want to feel like the hare the whole way through. As the campaign crossed the midway point, or 2/3 of the way, what we found is that a lot of fundraisers start to relax. A lot of the donors start to relax. it seems that the campaign is doing well. It's going to reach its goal with or without me. And that is a very important psychology to overcome, because if we over relax, a lot of times the campaign actually end up failing, slow down at the end. So in that moment, a lot of times we do the opposite. We want to highlight the locations that's not getting the signatures, the locations that are not doing well. Because by doing so, we remind ourselves that we can be the turtle in this situation. There's still room for improvement. We need to keep on working hard. We can highlight that there aren't a lot of time left for people to get signatures or to donate their blood. There aren't a lot of opportunities for donation. So we highlight the opposite, basically, the lack of opportunity to make more progress. And again, remind ourselves that, hey, we need to work hard. So this shift of psychology is really important here. Feeling that the hare in the beginning and feeling like a turtle, that we still have a lot of work to do at the end. And hopefully by doing so and making that shift for yourself and for your donors, you can sustain motivation the whole way through.
Okay, so this is really interesting, and I'm not sure if you've looked into this or have some sort of initial thoughts about this, but there's a lot of chatter in our brains, right, about how well we should be doing things, or whether or not we're succeeding and failing, that can sometimes get so bad that it turns into a little bit of paralysis or perfectionism. And I'm thinking about, I love that reframe around, being slow, kind of in the middle there, that being an okay and normal thing. Because what I fear happens sometimes is that when things slow down like that, the internal chatter in the fundraiser's head becomes so extreme around I'm failing, right? So as opposed to just highlighting the gap or highlighting here's what's left to do in order to sustain motivation, it can sometimes become so extreme in sort of the way they beat themselves up, because they believe they should still be the hare, right? That they sort of start to beat themselves up so much that it hinders their ability to take action in that middle zone. What are your thoughts about that?
That's a really great insight. And definitely it's important to remind ourselves that being the turtle in that stage is actually great. That's what keeps us motivated and not to be the hare. And one thing we found from our research that could be helpful to do that is to stay connected. So we found this behavior that people have, we call it social information avoidance. In the sense that when I feel that I'm not doing that well, when I have that fear, that is when we especially go out of our way to avoid other people. We don't want to meet up with other campaign organizers. We don't necessarily want to talk to donors because we are having that self-doubt or fear that, hey, maybe I'm not making as much progress as I should. I don't feel it's great. The campaign itself might be doing great, but I feel that I'm losing momentum internally. I don't feel as passionate about the campaign right now. I get bored of it. In the beginning, we are usually very excited. At the end, we are getting close to the end. We are also excited, but in the middle, we have this dip of motivation. We are just losing momentum. And at that moment, people avoid information about how other people are progressing, how other people are doing. But what our research show is that is the exact moment we actually need to stay connected. Because any kind of social information or feedback from other people, even if they are just doing slightly worse than us or slightly better than us, those things become really helpful benchmark to give us that motivation, because they help to anchor you on something that's closer to you than the big campaign goal. And it kind of refresh our mindset a little bit. Instead of thinking about the same campaign goal, I need to get this many signatures. Now I'm focusing on, hey, there's a parallel campaign in my region that's also doing well. Let me talk to that person, see what they are doing, and focusing on something slightly different, a slightly different benchmark. Another way to think about this is almost thinking about it as a friendly competition. At the end of the day, it's not a competition if we are all working toward the same shared goal. We want to make the world a better place. So it's not really a competition in that sense. But by thinking about other people's campaign or other campaigns' progress as benchmark information to remind you that, hey, there's room for improvement. I can do well. That is a lot of times very helpful. And that's a lot of times what we need, especially when we feel stuck in the middle stage of a campaign. So staying connected will be another important tool to think about, especially when we feel that we are losing momentum.
Wow. Okay. That is so interesting. There's so many implications to what you're saying right now in terms of that feeling of when we're not doing as good of a job as we think we should be doing, we tend to sort of go inward and pull back. I would say, even outside of fundraising, like specific fundraising campaigns, I think fundraising in general, the whole year sort of feels a little bit like a campaign. It's like you have your fundraising goal for the year. There's a lot of uncertainty throughout that year in terms of how you're going to hit that goal. I think a lot of fundraisers deal with thoughts that they aren't doing a good job or aren't doing as well as they want to be, at different points of the year, even beyond campaigns. And that likely has them pulling back from connection to each other. But I also wonder, it sounds like we pull back from connection to everyone during that stage a little bit. And so maybe it also, like, fundraisers would be pulling back from donors, connecting with donors at that stage as well. I'm curious what you think about that. Like, is it possible that if we're feeling like we're not doing as well as we think we should be throughout the year, that we might then set up less donor meetings or feel more nervous about having those conversations throughout the year as well?
Definitely. I think some of our research showed in other contexts that we avoid any kind of information from other people that could remind us of the fact that we are not having momentum toward our goal. And even though donors are very helpful in that stage, but a lot of times we may be worried about reporting progress to them or even just talking about the campaign in general because we're not feeling that internal drive. So we may be avoiding those meetings. But of course, rationally, we know that that's especially the moment that I should be learning from other campaign fundraisers. I should be hearing from the donors, especially more. And so it's important to stay connected, even though our inner desire may not drive us that way. And we do find that any kind of connection could be helpful there. If you're connecting yourself to other people who are similar to you that are also raising funds, they can be great benchmark. But if you're connecting yourself to people who are working in other domains, like donors or people who are not even in the fundraising space, that could still be great because you get to take your mind off things and again, regain that drive of using a different way. So just staying connected is helpful. However, you can make that connection to other humans.
Okay, this is such important advice. And I'm wondering, what are things that fundraising, departments or fundraisers should be thinking about in sort of their design of their campaign strategy or their fundraising strategy to sort of preemptively maybe set up those connection points before they feel like the turtle?
Yeah, definitely. I think since fundraising is a very unique context because we do have a goal and we do have a timeline. So that perfectly lay out the race in front of us. So if I think about my campaign goal as a year-long goal or a certain number, I can really roughly think about it as three stages. There's an early stage, there's a middle stage, and there's a final stage. And I always want to highlight that the way we think about the psychology in each stage is from the beginning, middle to the end. We think about making progress, staying connected, and finding purpose. So in the beginning, making progress is the key. So I may implement feedback or ways to help me feel that I'm making progress, focusing on one location at a time, making sure we are giving ourselves the signal that we're progressing fast, implementing those positive feedback early on, having a lot of donors already committed, lining up a lot of meetings. That's always great in the beginning. The middle stage, we know the challenge is to stay connected. So if I can pre-plan, I may already set up some meetings or sign myself up for some conferences among fundraisers during that stage. So you can pre-plan those social gatherings early on because you know you're going to lose momentum in the middle stage of the project. So if you can do that, that will for sure be a way to force you to stay connected in that middle stage. And what I want to highlight, finding purpose at the end, is because usually at the final stage, you're already doing great. The campaign is about to end. So you are the Hare in the situation. You are making progress. You are connecting to a lot of donors and other fundraisers. There seems to be nothing else really there to drive you to really finish big. But as the campaign goes, we always know you can always get more signatures. You can always get more donations. So what we found is what drives people in the final stage is to kind of take a bird's eye view and finding that big purpose, that big goal. Why are you doing this to begin with? A lot of times it's more than that specific number you are aiming for. So it's something bigger. Maybe it's climate change. Maybe it's your concern for the next generation, child labor, things that are big. That's what drives you to even set that campaign goal to begin with. That big purpose a lot of times is what helps to motivate people to finish big. So as you lay out kind of your campaign goal, think about how I can remind myself of that big purpose at the end. So that final few months, I continue to go forward, kind of like that turtle.
Okay. All right, this is so interesting. So I want to like think about beyond a campaign, for example. So let's say I would say that probably a lot of fundraisers, when they like cross the finish line of a campaign, probably feel like the hare, in the sense that they feel like they like kind of drag themselves moving as fast as they can across the line. Maybe they were actually the turtle, but they sort of have that like that exhaustion, as if they've been running as fast as they can the whole time. And following a campaign or any fundraising initiative, there are a lot of activities that need to happen after, right? Like communicating impact to the donor and thanking people, sending tax receipts. Like there's all these elements that ultimately impact the donor's engagement in the organization in the long term. How should we be thinking about this sort of like flux in motivation, or the different types of motivation, in relationship to like that post campaign time frame?
Another really important and great question. My work with my colleague Jennifer Archer directly look into that, because we see that in the individual context too. As people finish their weight loss goal, for instance, they go out and have a big meal, right? So we all want to celebrate a milestone, and that is all great. But what we found is that our society has really started to think about goals as a destination. But a lot of the goals, especially campaign goals, pro-social goals, they are not destination. They are journeys. So you may finish a milestone, but there's always more work to be done. So what we really want to kind of highlight is to start thinking about goal success as a journey and not so much as a destination. And what we found in our research is that it is really helpful at the moment of achievement to just take a moment, take a breath, and then think about the journey that you have completed. Think about starting from day one. What did you do to set up this goal? What did you work on, and how did you design this campaign? During the middle stage, when you felt that you're losing momentum, how did you get yourself to get motivated again? Now think about all these things that you did or your donors did to get you here today, to help you succeed. And we found that that reflection exercise, just thinking about the journey you completed and not just focusing on the destination that you just reached, how people really kind of reorganize their thoughts and finding or isolating those tools that were helpful for them, and in some way help to internalize those tools a little bit more, kind of refresh my memories on the things I did right and the things I want to do better next time. And those lessons itself will be helpful in reframing their success and help them kind of propel them to continue working hard. We found that in the weight loss context, for instance, when people achieve their weight loss goals or fitness goals, if they take a moment to reflect on what they did to make them who they are today, a lot of times they started using language that, well, I felt like I exercised a lot more, I ate healthier, so I feel like a different person now. I'm the type of person who exercise. I'm the type of person who do these things. And that internalization of what they did right make them a different person. And then therefore moving forward, they continue to eat healthy and work out, not because they have another goal, just because that becomes who they are. And so I think the same psychology can apply to fundraisers. If we take a moment and think about the process of fundraising as a journey and not so much focusing on the destination, we might be able to internalize many things into ourselves. I'm the type of person who have a purpose, who care about these things. I'm the connector. I help other people find purpose, and that's why they contribute to my campaign. The more we can internalize those things that we did into our identity, the more we feel the drive to continue doing these things, even before we set another specific campaign goal.
Okay. And it sounds like as I'm hearing you say all of that, I'm thinking for fundraisers, especially teams, when they're doing a campaign together to sort of think about some of those questions and that reflection in the middle connection phase as well. That opportunity to reflect on what they have been doing well, what has been going well, but like have that sort of personal reflection time and collective reflection time to give each other positive feedback could also be really helpful kind of in that middle phase as well. If they in advance kind of put some meetings on the calendar, okay, we know this is when we're going to be the turtle, we're going to have some really intentional meetings together during that time, and here are the things we're going to be reflecting on and sharing out to continue our motivation. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that is a brilliant idea because you just connected two psychologists together. By having a gathering like that in the middle stage, first of all, you make sure people are staying connected. Now there is this meeting, this sharing thing I have to go to. But secondly, you also help people kind of share things in a non-threatening way. Like we know this is the time we may take a break, we may be losing a little bit of momentum, but it's a perfect time to reflect on what we did right the first quarter, what we want to continue doing. So I think you created an environment or context for people to share ups and downs in a way that's not threatening to how they feel. And I think that is a great way to help people pick up their motivation. And I think a lot of times it's important to think about the power of perspectives. Just knowing that it's normal in that stage to feel a lack of momentum. It's normal to feel like a turtle sometimes. Will help people feel less afraid about those feelings. It is normal because no matter how successful a campaign is, there will be a middle stage where we feel a lack of motivation. That happens to everybody in every campaign. That always happens. So just normalizing it, I think, can also help people feel more okay with those feelings and feel more okay to connect, to share. And by doing so, we can actually regain our motivation.
Okay, I love that. And I know we're almost out of time. Is there anything else you want to make sure that folks understand about motivation, their own, their donors, before we have to say goodbye today? And then if you want to let people know where they can learn more about your work and read about your research or connect with you, folks are always wondering about that as well.
Sure. So I think the most important part I have learned for myself through all my research projects is to really think about goal pursuit as a dynamic process. I think our society tends to like to latch onto one tool and then use that one tool throughout our journey. But all my research have shown again and again that it is a dynamic process in the sense that sometimes you want to be the hare, sometimes you want to remind yourself you are the turtle, sometimes you want to stay connected, sometimes you want to focus on your specific goal. Sometimes a small goal is easier to focus on, and sometimes you want to focus on the big goal, the big purpose. It is dynamic, and therefore start thinking about it as different stages and realizing you need different tools, different resources, and different psychologies across different stages. It's really the key here. Staying dynamic will help you really sustain that motivation throughout. It's not about one tool that applies to all people and across all stages. So that is really the most important takeaway that you'll have. And now, of course, you can internalize that and use that tool however you want to. And for people who would like to reach out to me or give me some feedback, you can definitely find my email on Stanford Business School website. And a lot of my research papers are there as well. And Stanford Magazine also features some of my research projects. Some of them have YouTube videos. So feel free to watch those if you want to dive in deeper into specific research findings.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. I'm so grateful for this conversation, and I know it's going to support fundraisers in so many ways. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to all the listeners of this channel for all the important work you have been doing.